This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual. Ladies and gentlemen, the host of WEBIT Virtual, Dr. Plamen Rusev.
WEBIT community from all around the world. Such a pleasure, honor, and opportunity for all of us to be together and to connect, hopefully, our beautiful minds for a better future. I know yours are beautiful, and I'm trying my best to bring to this wonderful virtual studio powered by the most advanced events virtualization platform, the Virtual Show, the most beautiful minds we have access to. We tap into the wealth of knowledge and the visionary, the visions they bring, so we can connect the dots and hopefully, at the end of the day, add value, the value of achieving goal 2030 and making the SDGs a step closer. WEBIT as a community is committed to making a positive impact, and definitely goal 2030 is the impact we all need to achieve in order to live a better world, not only for our children, actually for ourselves. You know that the issue is more pressing than anything we know, and obviously our 2021 season is here to unite AI architects, AI society builders, and everyone who is somehow connected to exploring and further expanding the boundaries of our knowledge and AI in order to make this happen. Without further ado, and again expressing my gratitude to all of you for being with us, I would like to start with presenting my guest today. I would like you to see first his business card.
Mainak Mazumdar is a data science executive with over 20 years of experience in consumer, media, and marketing tech. As the Chief Data Officer of Nielsen Company, Mainak leads data science, identity solutions, and AI initiatives. He is responsible for product development. Mainak is passionate about scaling businesses with AI, developing talent, and delivering results. Prior to Nielsen, Mainak held data science leadership roles with GfK, Simo Media, and Google. DoubleClick.
Investing in data quality and accuracy is essential to making AI possible, not only for a few privileged, but for everyone in the society. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reduce human bias in AI starts with the data. Instead of racing to build new algorithms, my mission is to build a better data structure that makes ethical AI possible. Welcome to my fantastic guest here with us. Thank you so much for joining, Mr. Mazumdar.
Hey, great to be here and looking forward to sharing my thoughts with you and your community. It's an important.
Absolutely. It's our honor to have you with us, and our vast WEBIT community has been expecting this particular discussion with a lot of questions being asked, and definitely now I am hopeful we will give enough answers to all of them. Of course, our lines are open, #WEBIT, tweet at Plamen Rusev, and we will have the questions also embedded into this live WEBIT virtual event. I would like to start with questions that will give clarity on the comment made by you. Is AI failing us? Are developers designing algorithms to deliver biased and wrong decisions? And could you please comment on what is the role of AI when it comes to fair and equitable policy decision making?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, AI has been amazing, right? So we are seeing terrific benefits, and a lot of times you don't realize it when you're on your mobile phones and you're using technology. There's a lot of deep learning models already embedded. So we are already seeing amazing benefits in terms of speed, scale, and in our day-to-day lives, right? But I think that my argument is that it's less about the algorithms and those models. It's most about the data. I think this is a cautionary tale in terms of that as we are building and bringing AI to our lives, especially when it comes to society and making decisions on people's lives and policy, I think we need to be careful, not only careful, be cognizant that data becomes very, very, very important. The data that feeds into these algorithms is as important, if not more important, in my mind, for future of the society and really sustain the economy that we have built in the digital ecosystem. So this is going to be very important focus for many of us as a practitioner, but also as a citizen. We need to be really, understand really the power and purpose of the data as we deploy AI into our lives.
Mainak, what is the real problem? Is it the algorithms or biased data?
Yeah, it's the data. I think if you think about the way this journey has started, I would say in all earnest, maybe last 10 years or so, we have collected a lot of data already. Because if you are on a digital platform, you are leaving your footprints in terms of where you are, your emails, your viewing behavior, your browsing behavior, your location data. There's a lot of data is already available. And what has happened is since then, we have had immense progress in computation power. So now we could compute vast amount of data very easily and also cheaper, right? It's very cheap to store data, which used to be expensive in the past. So storage cost has come down. So what do you see? These kind of confluence and events that there's a lot of data available and computation and storage becomes more accessible to folks. And so people have been building models that data they have already collected. But they have been collected for different purposes. It's the purpose of what's been collected and how it's been used. That's where the biases comes in. So if you're collecting the data for your media behavior, which we like to study from Nielsen perspective, but if you're using that data to understand your other behavior, most likely you're going to get biased data. Like if you're collecting data on only certain types of population or certain types of groups, and you're projecting, building AI to deliver a marketing message, you're going to leave a lot of people, outside the sphere of that marketing program. So there are real hard choices we have to make in terms of and making sure that data is unbiased and data is collected for the purpose that is going to be used for, what I call fit to purpose. I think that's a shift in mind that we argue and we like to see. Instead of collecting the data that's already been using the data that's already been collected for some other purposes, moving from that paradigm to really curate and contextualize data and push those data into these algorithms and build those algorithms for the purpose that you collect the data for. Does it make sense?
Yeah, what I hear from you, there is another challenge that I guess needs to be addressed. This is about the fact that most AI systems rely on some sources of collected data. So do you think that the problem with the definition, data collection, and measurement is like underappreciated and ignored?
Yes, absolutely. And it's a lot of effort to collect unbiased, high quality and accurate data. You have to design what you're going to collect. You want to label them correctly, but you also want to understand the biases, which means that data is basically what I think is abstraction of a reality, right? And that you and I are looking at it, it's data that's coming to me, and that you could disaggregate this image into parts. It's a data. So I think it's very important for us to really, really pay a lot of attention and also investment in the collection of the information that will ultimately feed into the algorithms. Because algorithms are, they rely on good data. They would rely on training set that's unbiased, highly accurate, and quality. And I think that's what, in my company, Nielsen, that's what our focus is, to make sure the data we collected is unbiased. And perhaps in our use case, representative of the people or the society or the media we're trying to measure.
So there are these 3-pillar realignment, which prescribed by you to stop the perpetuating the human and societal data bias that we already have. What are they? Can you please tell us more about?
Yeah, so I think there are the three, and I did mention in my talk, the three things that we should look into or we should push for and focus on. One is what I call data infrastructure. Now, data infrastructure means how we share or consume data. It's the structure that's needed for the society to operate, as well as the services and facility needed to support the data and digital economy. So that's what I mean by infrastructure. And I think we need to keep focus on that. And that includes all the discussion, all the topics that we just talked about. The second piece is data quality. This is what the fit for purpose of data is very, very, very important. For example, if you are using data for hiring, right, for building AI to hire people, if you are doing for, using AI to apply, to approve loans in real estate, these are specific use cases, and we have to make sure the quality of the training data and input is unbiased to give results that's accurate. Now, a lot of people argue, and I'm in that camp, that AI actually is exposing more our biases. So in some ways, the AI is actually not only reinforcing our biases, but also exposing our biases because we are using existing data. So that's what I call number two is quality. And the third piece, which supports both number one and number two, is literacy. And I think, I'm excited to be talking about this topic today with your community, is because I do believe there is a work we need to do to make people literate in terms of understanding the concepts, the issues, challenges, but also the opportunity that's in front of us, because it's amazing opportunity to use AI and use for our policy and in our lives. It's an important topic.
Dear Mainak, actually, I look forward to welcome you as a very, very important and valuable member of the WEBIT community. And thanks so much for joining us. We will continue just shortly after the break.
Thank you.
This program is powered by the Virtual.show, making your offline events virtual.
We are back in our discussion with the chief scientist of Nielsen to consider all the opportunities and challenges in front of us when we move ahead into endorsing and further bringing AI as part of our everyday lives. We had a very interesting discussion so far, and it somehow connects me to another talk we had recently with Professor Russell, who was mentioning that we have a fundamentally wrong approach towards AI. And he gave this very interesting allegory with the king, who we all know, who requested to have everything that he touches with his hands turning into gold. And that's how he lived and actually died in misery because he couldn't get any decent food. It was all turning into gold. So it's very important to know what we want, to really know how we want it. Otherwise, it will happen and we might not like it. But back to our discussion with Mainak, and what are the requirements for the technology leaders today when engineering and all these to have in mind what are the complexities that they need to take care of?
Yeah, it's an important topic and subject that that's been a lot of discussion in the United States. For example, the people, the architect, the engineers who are designing the systems. I think there is what I call the science and software People are building the pipelines and algorithms. There's that part. But I think the most important for them is to really understand the purpose of the data, right? And how the data gets collected, but also which data is more appropriate to train on for the problem they're trying to solve for. And this is I believe that this is going to be a topic for a lot of debate and discussions. And people are really concerned that if we are using any available data for certain decision making, especially decision making that has policy implications or implications about our lives, like who gets paid, who lives where, who gets to eat first, who gets to drive in a special lane, all the what I call the things that we are take granted in the society. As these machines try to make those decisions on behalf of us, we just have to make sure the input data or training data is as accurate and not leaving certain people or segment of the society behind. It's very, very important. And I think there's another discussions going on is that is there going to be some credentials, right? When you become a lawyer, you take a bar exams to be a lawyer. So if you're an AI engineer, do you have to go through some credential systems to make sure you're accounting for the biases and ethics and explainability in AI? Now, it's a bigger topic for discussion, but I think it's something that we ought to at least look into it.
Absolutely. Well, we've seen during the years companies becoming something first, like mobile first. Now we see, and obviously Nielsen has already stated that is turning into an AI first company. And obviously this is a process. So how AI can be used to improve understanding and measurements, and what is the effect of increasing fragmentation of media and the profilation of devices that are, the latest, what are the latest updates of measuring audience reach? So these are all questions, there are a number of questions here in this question. Happy to hear your take on it.
Yeah, and I think that it's an important topic, right? Especially when you talk about media. So if you think about media, and we measure media globally, I think in 35 plus countries, media means what people are watching, like whether they're watching on TV or mobile phone or computers or outdoor in the bars or theater or billboard when you're driving. Our goal is to make sure we are measuring everybody. Doesn't matter where you live, what's your ethnicity, and what's your age and gender. We want to make sure everybody is measured. And then we tell our clients like who is watching when, how much of the media, how often, and where. Are you watching it at home or on the bus or outside, right? So that's 360 media behavior. Now, what we have seen is that for last maybe 10 years or so, there's a lot of fragmentation going on, which means that you have choices of watching the same video on multiple platforms and multiple devices. When that happens, you have a lot of different data pieces, right? And I think the opportunity for a company like Nielsen is incorporating all that data sets, data sources that you left behind, and incorporating that and making sure we are training with the ground truth. And we have panels. Panel means that we have a high quality sample who have agreed to participate in our research, and we understand their full media behavior. Based on that high quality, unbiased data set, we train other data sources. And when I talked about AI first company, which all it means that we're solving these measurement challenges with AI.
You're also talking about the Nielsen ID resolution system, and it will be interesting to hear when it will be launched, and
yes,
what's behind it. What are the forces behind developing this new technology? What are the goals of it?
That's Nielsen IDs, our new forays in the space. It's primarily came out in the background of what I call these discussions going on in the digital platform on privacy, right? So as you know, with the third-party cookies or the identifier going away from the browser, and iOS devices are not allowing to use specific IDs, device IDs, all these IDs are going to disappear. And for marketers who are trying to target and understand their audiences, understand their consumers, it's going to get harder for them to do that. In response to that, we build a Nielsen audience ID system, which is basically a computation graph technique that allows us to link number of devices to a person. So, if you own 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 devices, including your television at home, this science allows you to link that. So in the end of the day, we could actually confidently tell marketers it was you who watched this show in these 3 devices. Otherwise, the marketer is going to count as 3 different people. I want to make sure it's only you, not only 3 different people. So what it does, it takes the fraud and waste out of the system. So this way we could really get the most accurate data about who was exposed to an advertising or who have seen your content.
Well, obviously, this is pretty much connected to the latest challenges and changes in legislation. So could you comment also about its benefits when it comes to data privacy?
Yeah, so look, I think we are moving into a little, what I call a privacy-centric world, right? And it's good for consumers because it's important to respect, people's privacy. But I also believe that it forces companies, including us and other companies, to innovate. And you will see a lot more privacy, related techniques where that allows companies to really estimate who the real audience is and build some, computation techniques, some science around that, and also some technology, right? So I think what you will see is that in response to the privacy, what's happening in GDPR in Europe, but also in the United States, there's going to be more innovation around the data infrastructure, data privacy, consumer privacy. And Nielsen, as a measurement company, we're pretty excited about that because we have a point of view on how that needs to be done. And of course, we are leading some of those initiatives in the US and outside the United States as well.
Does it mean that, I was going to say, do I hear, but I don't hear you, but does it mean that you are actually not going to be measuring also, but you are getting into the business of targeting?
No, our focus is measurement. So when we talked about the identity graph, which is audience, ID, it's all for measurement, which means that we want to measure who saw an ad and where and how much and when. We just talked about advertising and content. This graph is not going to be used for targeting. So we are not in that business. Our goal is really, relentlessly focused on one use case, and which we believe is the important one, is to make sure we are measuring everybody across all forms of media globally.
So are you looking for new ways to reach targeted audiences?
No, I think what we would do is our goal is to make sure when somebody is targeting certain types of audiences, we are there to evaluate and validate that whether that campaign reached that audiences or not. Does it make sense?
Definitely makes sense. Thank you so much. We will be back shortly after the break, continuing our discussion on where AI is changing the landscape.
Thank you.
This program is powered by thevirtual.show, making your offline events virtual.
Wonderful WEBIT community. We're in discussion with Chief Scientist of Nielsen, and we're in discussion on how AI is changing the landscape, and also how Nielsen is turning into AI-first company. Back to our discussion. There's an interesting quote that I've recently read coming from Nielsen: "Innovation fuels success." powerful data fuels emerging technology. Is AI a gatekeeper to the economy? And what are the benefits and disadvantages of AI in general, as according to your understanding?
Yeah, look, we touched on some of this topic already. I think it can be a gatekeeper, right? If it allowed it to be. For many of us, AI is a tool to making certain types of decision faster, better decisions, right? And then scale the decisions in a way that we have not been able to scale in the past. So I think that initially it's a tool to improve our lives. And then down the road, I think there's a lot of interesting applications. What we have to be careful is make sure that as we deploying these algorithms in our decision-making and day-to-day lives, we have to make sure the data is accurate. Because unless the data is not accurate, then you get biased results, and also, most likely biased policy making and other decisions that none of us would like to, see.
So what will be the influence of AI on the economy in the future?
Look, we are already seeing, as I said, it's the benefit that we are seeing. It's not that obvious, right? There's so much AIs in your cell phone, in the Siri, in the voice control, in the text, in the images. It's amazing that how much is already there. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot more acceleration in the tools of basically productivity tools that we use for our works. A lot of acceleration into our what I call the places where we could automate, right, processes in the businesses, but also at homes and gadgets and so on and so forth. I think that's the first step. Then the next step would be, in the policy area, right? That's going to be, I think, is a slower process, but that needs to be, we need to be thoughtful, and we need to be careful in how we bring that into people's lives, where we are saying we're differentiating people in terms of who gets a job, who gets a loan, who gets to attend certain universities, and so on and so forth.
So we're always asking questions about predictions, and predictions are kind of difficult to be made with the speed of change that we see around us. It's very easy to predict if you're a medieval worksmith or whatever, what will be the future of your craft. But currently everything goes like in the speed of light. But still, so what is your vision for the coming decades and predictions on how and what AI will do to society?
Oh, it's a great question. Look, I think, there might be 3 or maybe 4, maybe 5 things that we think about for the future. And your first prediction is that the acceleration of technology right now, things that used to take years takes days, and things that used to take hours, it takes seconds. So this exponential speed that's happening around us, and this is primarily driven by automation software and now with AI, is going to change our lives, right? And so the speed at which things are happening. I'll give you an example. In the media, which we track, we used to have media entertainment shows. People used to curate shows for 5 or 6 seasons. And now that gets compressed into 1 season, like, shorter series. So everything, the cycle time are reducing. And so that the speed is very important. Second is interconnectedness. There was a virus in Wuhan, and I cannot find flowers in New York City. And that happened within a few days. So that at the speed of the butterfly effect, that something happens in certain parts of the world, and how quickly that impacts our lives is very, very important. And we're going to see more of that. And we're seeing that in the pandemic, time everywhere globally. The third, we talked a little bit about the automation piece in AI, like how it's going to drive more efficiency and speed and then so on and so forth. And the policy piece, as I said, for the future is going to be slower, but it's going to be harder problem to solve for. But good problems are hard problems, and I'm hoping that we can solve for that. The fourth piece is important. We touch on the whole privacy. I think we are moving into a more privacy-centric world where your privacy, your confidentiality is going to be important. And that's going to drive certain types of behaviors, certain types of business model, but also technology. And finally, I think, the decentralization is becoming a big move going forward, which means that, as you can see, there's a multiple digital platforms, and they're very important ones. When we are measuring our audiences, we see that they are incorporating, adopting different media platforms for their media and choices, right? So that choices is becoming exponential. So you'll see a lot more fragmentation, decentralization. Now, it's good, from Nielsen perspective, which means that we have to measure more things, but that's a trend we are seeing going forward.
Thank you so much. It's been real pleasure and honor to have you with us in this very telegraphic style, sharing very specific answers to clear questions, which are definitely of high interest to the audience of WEBIT. Thank you so much, Mainak. It's been a true pleasure to host you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mainak Mazumdar, Chief Research Officer of Nielsen. Thank you again for being with us. And you can, of course, share anything, last words with our audience, words maybe of, stimulation of where will they see next.
No, look, I think I want to thank you and your community for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts. These are important. And more importantly, I want to make sure that everybody is safe in this time of COVID. With that, thanks, everybody.
Hopefully it will be the same. We're casting this magic spell to all our community, even though this was the curse of being connected during this challenging times when so many people and they're all interconnected. We've had a lot of bad moments, but also a lot of moments of support, supporting each other all around the world. So everything that doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Stronger.
Chinese. So what an interesting time indeed. And the way it comes sounds really, really challenging. We'll see. We're about ahead of time now, and we'll see what will be the next and the future bringing us. Here, from this window where I see you, next week on Tuesday, we will be hosting the Senior Vice President and Group Chief Information Officer of Cisco. Jacqueline is joining us next Tuesday, same time at WEBIT Virtual. It's been a fantastic start of season 2 of WEBIT Virtual with our new format, having only one special guest. We've seen huge interest. We've seen a lot of questions, and above all, we see so much amazing content being created and being consumed further, used by our global community, and of course, reaching out beyond them. Thank you so much again for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful WEBIT community, I will see you next Tuesday from the same screen, and looking forward to have all of you again with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
This program is powered by the Virtual.show, making your offline events virtual.